Can you believe it was a 3-parter? Hey, it's Romania Black. We're on the season 4 finale for Natsume's Book of Friends. And yeah, I couldn't believe that. I told the mods, I was like, you didn't tell me this was a 3-parter. And Flora, the moderator, was like, well, I didn't think you'd want to watch 3 episodes at once. And I was like, no, you're very correct. I would not have wanted to watch 3 episodes at once. 2's my limit. But what a tease. The worst part about it is that not only was I having internet troubles, not only did I have a tournament for the team I was coaching over the weekend, so I couldn't watch it then, but then as soon as I get back from the tournament, I got sick. And so I've spent the last few days feeling terrible and couldn't watch it then. So I'm just now feeling back up to like 90%. And I was like, I have waited long enough. I've waited like 2 weeks to watch this finale for this season. I thought I was going to breeze through season 4 because it was just like 2-parter. And everything between the weather, the internet, the power, being sick, it has all kept me from doing that, which I guess is fine. But it's been frustrating because I was like, oh, I want to get to season 5. But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you all right now. I know from the mods that the next 2 weeks, the rest of February, as you know it, will be watching. There are 2 OVAs back to back. I'm going to do some research. We're at least going to do the first OVA next week. I'm also going to start talking about the manga next week. So that's exciting too. The manga that covers season 4 and maybe the rest of season 3. We'll see. But we are going to finish out February with the OVAs for Natsume. I'm going in order. The moderators have me hooked up before we start with season 5. So they've got me a whole sheet of the order I watched Natsume in. So you don't have to worry. My moderators got me covered. They're big Natsume fans. They know what's up. So we're going to be finishing that out, which is fine. We'll start March with season 5. Crazy talk. But with that being said, I am excited to be finishing this season finale. This is the first season finale for Natsume I've literally felt dread because last episode was very like intense. And Natsume going back to his old home and dealing with this girl that was not nice and then having this spirit possess him. And it's the first time I've genuinely felt tension for Natsume. And I was like, oh, I don't like this. And I was like, I just want Natsume to be happy. And I'm like, I need a happy ending this season for Natsume. So we'll see how this goes. But real quick, I do have a lot of comments since I've been off to talk about with you all. As far as episode 8, of season 4, or episode 47, Sunspot said, today's Psychopass connection, which I've watched Psychopass on this channel. It's a lot of fun. Mikage's dub voice actor is the same as Kogami. And I really enjoyed this episode with the Psychopass layer of Mikage essentially taking form from what his master was doing and later accepting his role in the cycle of things, taking on that burden of darkness that no one can convince me wasn't a deliberate casting in the dub. Yes, sometimes voice actors get typecast, and it's fine. But I like that connection, so thank you very much, Sunspots, for making it. Then I had a couple comments that kind of went together here. Zuri Joseph said for episodes 6 and 7 of season 4, or episodes 45 and 46, just for funsies, Natsume's yokai disguise mask says me, which means I, and is the me part of his name, Natsume, which I think is kind of like your third eye. You can see yokai, all that fun stuff. And maybe that's intentional. We'll see. And Notori's, as they said, quote, Notori's lazy ass paper bag mask says Hito, which means person or human, written twice, emphasizing that he is definitely a human. And then before we go on, Cephix, in response to their comment, said, it's interesting because most of the yokai are unable to read human writing, just like in episode 4 with the letter. So, Notori is probably insulting the yokai by wearing a paper bag, and it's just funny. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, essentially, Notori is just trolling the yokai by wearing literally a mask that says, I'm a human, mother truckers, and I'm fooling all of you. Of course he would. Of course he would. I love Notori, actually, more and more as we get through these seasons. Zuri also says, I love these episodes, but then again, I love this entire season. And the seasons before. And the seasons after as well. So, my judgment is probably biased. And watching you go through the emotions makes my day every week. So thank you. I really appreciate that. But I thought that was hilarious. The idea of Notori just trolling the yokai. So funny. Cephix also notes for episodes 6 and 7, when Notori talks Natsume down from a panic attack after seeing an injured Tanama, Notori emphasizes that Natsume needs, quote unquote, that feeling, and to, quote unquote, not abandon it. The term he specifically uses is hitsuyo, which stresses the term twice in this scene, and even repeats it again at the very end of the episode. By using the word hitsuyo, it includes the same kanji as Tanama's first name, Kaname. Notori is indicating to Natsume that what he needs and should not abandon is Tanama in his life. Hitsuyo is also the implication that whatever is attached is not only necessary or indispensable, but must be used and not simply relegated solely as need. And Kaname, on its own, even means cornerstone, meaning that Tanama's underlying role and is a legitimately life-changing, necessary, and significant person in Natsume's life. Look, here's my thing, y'all. Here's where I am in before reading that comment and possibly after. I have my shipping like triad right now of the ghosts of shipping past, present, and future. Right now, the ghosts of shipping's past are Natsume and Yuriko from this season because I really like episode 5. I really liked that one. I thought that was really good. I like that ship of Natsume's past. Natsume's ghost of shipping present is Natsume and Tanama. Hands down. Easy go. Look, I am all for Natsume and Tanama being in game. I'm all for them being together, present tense, future tense. But if I had a Natsume ship of future, I would probably go with Natsume and Notori when they're adults. I like that ship when they're adults. Not now, but when they are adults. But you know what? If Natsume and Tanama ended up being a ship as adults too, I'm fine with that. Obviously, I think Tanama and Notori are great present and future ships for Natsume. Just not Matoba. Matoba's got a lot of work to do if we're going to get anywhere near that, and we are most certainly not near that. So, but anyway, y'all, I do have my internet back, knock on all forms of wood. So I do not need to download the episodes anymore, which is exciting. That being said, I want to make sure that I have the correct. I did not have the Japanese sub on, so we're going to go back and change that, which is great. But now I do, so we're all good to go. And I'm super excited, y'all. I've talked for nearly 8 minutes. I'm not going to talk anymore, but thank you all so much for following me with season. Thank you for following me this long. We're at episode 52. I know I haven't watched it a full year of Natsume because we've done some episodes that are two-parters, but it's been nearly a year of Natsume. In March, it will be like a year of Natsume, which is wild to me. Absolutely wild that I've been watching this show for a year. Can you believe it? So, with that being said, we're not going to waste any more time. We are going to dive right in and see what we get in the season finale. Y'all, I've been so excited. I cannot wait. Thank you all so much for the comments. They are so appreciated. But we are going to start episode 52, the season finale of season 4 of Natsume's Book of Friends. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. I can't believe this is the last week of this country jam. I saw the light. I've been. Everybody that hates country music is like, what are you even doing? I did really end up liking this OP a lot. This OP has been great. And the fact that we tie back Kid Natsume back to his original home with the foster family in this episode. This season just brought it all full circle. This has been my favorite season so far. By the way, season 4 has been my favorite. It's going to be hard to top season 4 because it's been so good so far. But I've enjoyed it a lot. I think I just like seeing Natsume's growth and Madara's growth, and then seeing Natsume's relationships develop with Tanama and Notori. And with that being the case, I think that's why this season's my favorite. But season 4 has been my favorite so far, so I'm excited to see where we go with it. I'm just so nervous. I want this to be a happy ending this season. I don't want it to be sad. I don't want it to be a cliffhanger. I just let me have this show. Please. Let it be happy like that. Oof. Oh. Oh, yeah. So we can't just kick him out. Ooh. Oh. Why do we have to suffer? Why? He's an orphan! Leave him alone, you bastards! Why are you all so mean? Oh. Oh. Why are these kids the worst? Why are all of these kids the most bastard? Why? And it's just like the OP. Wow. Natsume finding all these shrines, right? Just this is like the one he found with the girl in the letter. He's so tiny. He's so tiny. Protect this baby. Aww. A long way home. Wow. Eat your broccoli, Miyoko! What's with these anti-orphan children? These prejudiced little brats. The udon shop. Yeah. Man, keep it in business and not changing a thing in 15 years. Aww. I'm glad that Natsume's friends in school now are not jerks like these guys, honestly. Aww. He didn't do anything! He literally didn't do anything! Oh my god. It's not your fault. No, it's not! Quit being a little bitch and be nice to him! Honey, you haven't even opened your second beer yet. No! And this is that scene from back then. Yep, this is the other half of that scene. Oh, wow. Like, think of how Natsume feels. He doesn't have a family anymore. Why is nobody thinking of how Natsume feels? Oh, and she has to share a room with him. Well, that would be awkward. That would be awkward. I will give her that. Oh, is this his box with his stuff in it? Yeah, and the picture. Oh. That's the saddest thing in the world. Oh my God. This kid can't even look at a picture of his dead parents, girl. He has to tell himself he's not lonely. Oh my God. And this is, yeah, going back to all those scenes. Yep. Oh. Yeah, and we go back to this scene. I mean, sometimes it is hard to remember who family members are, but you remember certain memories about them and feelings that they had. I'm sure he was. Wow. Why do we have to see his heartbreak again? Why do you... Girl! Just, why? It's like freaking Cinderella. Aww. Oh. I want to put it in my pocket and protect him forever. Where did you think it was, sir? This mysterious Tachibana who no one knows who he is. Oh. Why don't they take him there one day? Why don't the parents take him there? Uh-uh. Oh, it's so creepy. Oh my God. No. Ooh. Ooh, how scary. Mm. I could see why she would find that a little bit creepy. His little hands. Look at his tiniest little hands. The smallest hands in existence. Just, there's not enough joy to place in them tiny hands. Drip, drip, drop, little April showers. Ding, 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 na, 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 na. I always think of the song from Bambi every time it storms like that and you see like rain showers on leaves. Always think of that. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, no, kid. Oh, don't run out in the rain like that. That's not good. Oh, kid, no, no. Oh, no, no. Honey, don't run in a forest with lightning. That's not a good thing. Oh. Is this episode how much can we traumatize Natsume? Oh. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Oh. Like, it's not his fault that he got stuck in the rain and fell asleep. He's a literal child. Oh my god! Girl! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh. Why does this kid have to suffer? This is not fair. And he's already sick because he's been out in the rain. Don't you make me cry, show. Don't you dare. Oh. Oh my god. Oh. Oh. Oh my god. Go away. Go away, yokai. Yes, exactly. Oh, oh my god. Oh my god. Yes, come on, Madara. Oh. 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 Ew. Ew. Gross. Okay, now Madara's like, get the fudge out of here. Oh, thank God. I was like, get out. Oh, the black butterflies was a cool effect. Oh, it's about damn time. Sure you are. Sure you are, Madara. Sure you are. Oh! So is he not going to go to the house? You better go see that damn house at least once and get some closure. This was out of the way. Oh. It definitely does look like abandoned. Oh. Oh. Oh, wow. I like how modest it is. It's just this little house. This feels very Digimon for some reason in this moment. I can't explain it, but it does feel very Digimon movie. The way that that scene was just animated. Oh. Mmm. You shut up. I said I wasn't going to cry in this. Oh. It is a beautiful location, though. Oh. 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 Stop it. Just stop it. Just stop it. Oh. You should have gave us a longer linger on that shot of him because it was so good. How could that location not sell? It's on the mountainside. It's beautiful. Oh, I wanted to hear that, bitch. Oh. And showing him crying, shut up. Oh my god, trying to find this round two. The third time! Oh my god. Go that route. Yes! Ah! Oh my god! I love Taki's outfit. Really? Oh my god. Do not drink that water. Do not drink it. No. No! Absolutely not! Mm-hmm. Oh, boo! Oh. Oh, I was hoping for this. I was like, don't you dare end the season without taking that family portrait. Oh. 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 Oh, with Madara in it! Yes! The product placement, y'all. I love it. With the blossom. Just, this series is feasting on my precious tears. It gets its power from our tears. You can't succumb to it, damn it. Why? Oh. How dare it? Absolutely, how dare it? I can't, y'all. Oh, oh my God. Oh. What can we say? What can we say? I love this show so much, and I have never felt so sorry for a protagonist than Natsume. Like, darkest backstory. You want to talk about a heartache? Oh. Mm. 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 Damn. Well, there's no preview because that's the end of the season, but my heart, it needs a reset for season 5 for sure. I swear that this series, it functions on our tears. I don't know any protagonist of a series that I've watched. There have definitely been protagonists with darker backstories. I don't know many that have been sadder. I don't know. I every time they go back to I think what makes it hit home so hard and what really gets to me is the fact that Natsume is such a kind, warm, loving person, and the fact that he's taken all of this pain. I need to know the interpersonal therapist that Natsume is, because if I had a background like that, I would need that. And Natsume is such a great protagonist because he totally subverts this expectation that we see from I know we've talked about this in previous seasons, but this season as a whole epitomized it so well, in that Natsume has come from such a sad and tragic background. And time again in a battle shonen, for example, you would see a character like Natsume that had gone through such a horrifying, tragic upbringing. And how would their character probably be in a battle shonen? Oh, well, they would have been like this ice cold loner that doesn't need anybody, or is like getting revenge on the world, or be a villain, honestly. But Natsume's not like that. Natsume internalizes all that pain. Now, does Natsume become a Gary Stew out of it? No. Natsume has flaws, and his flaws are that he distances himself from others almost out of self-preservation, and he almost makes it to where he self-harms himself out of self-preservation because he doesn't want other people to be tied up in his burden. And that's something that over the course of this season, Tanama and others have really let Natsume know, hey, that's not healthy. Don't do that. You're not alone. And so, God, this series is so good in talking about interpersonal communication and relationships, and talking about how to process trauma, and talking about how to move forward with trauma and talking about people being ostracized and prejudiced because they're different, and how it basically shows how the world can seem so narrow and doom and gloom, but that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And Natsume is like this beacon of that light, and that he's just such a good person. You don't want that light to be squandered. And so this season has really overall given us Natsume at some of his most vulnerable moments, where he's been tempted to let the light be squashed, and he's managed to overcome it. And the funny thing to me is that it wasn't an episode like the one with Matoba, where the big bad guy shows up and he's like, I'm going to squander the light inside of you and fill you with darkness. That wasn't even a problem for Natsume. He was like, I don't like you, and just smacked him away. But no, him going back to his childhood home and encountering a ghost that's been like a little bug infesting his former foster parents' home, that was the big antagonist of the season. And you're like, well, shit, what? And so, I said this in the ED, and I will say it again. This is my favorite season so far. I love it. I know a lot of people told me they like season 3 the best, which is fine. That no indication is a spoiler that 5, 6, and 7 won't be great seasons. But I think this show gets better and better. And that is a testament for a series that I'm ending season 4 on, that it gets better and better. And I think that the key is, it's a lot like March Comes In Like a Lion. It's a lot like a lot of other slow burn series. It's a lot like Ace of the Diamond. And I love March, and I love Ace of the Diamond. I can do a slow burn. As long as you give me character development and it keeps building, I can do a slow burn. And I think that that's what Natsume has done such a really good job with, is it started out as this little show building up, but now season 3 kind of opened the gates of, oh, there's this world of exorcists. Oh, there's this world of this. And season 4 has spent the majority of its time saying, okay, before we move forward, and Natsume go, because it's so smart, honestly. Before we can move forward, we introduced the Exorcist in season 3. Before we move forward and have Natsume maybe have more interactions with the Exorcist, because I think that's coming. I think that's going to happen. I think Matoba's not just going to sit back, and Nanase and Madara had their moments in this season. So whether they were anime only or manga or whatever, we'll find out in the next couple weeks. But I do think that it's important that before we move forward in seasons 5, 6, and 7 and possibly develop those relationships with the Exorcists, we need to establish that Natsume is going to be strong enough as a character to handle those types of relationships. The answer to that question, fortunately, is yeah, I think he is. And I think that this season finale kind of went back to why he is going to be strong enough to handle those relationships. And it was like, I liked getting the closure. I thought for a second we weren't going to go back to his former home. For a second, I thought we weren't going to go back. And there was a part of me that was like, do I feel mad about this? Because for a second, I thought he was just going to ditch the family home and say, oh, wait, but I have my home with Toko and Shigure. I don't need to go back to my family home. I have a future. Why am I clinging to the past? And for a second, I thought he wasn't going to go back. And I was like, that's okay. We don't have to go back. But then I was like, we spent the last 2.5 episodes wanting to go back. And it's going to feel a little bit anticlimactic if we don't go back. And then it was worth it. We went back and got the closure. That cry on that porch, I was not ready for that. I didn't need to see. Anytime Natsume breaks down and cries, because he's such a strong character and he holds it together and he never cries. He just always has a smile on his face. And that's what makes him so damn endearing, is that he's always smiling, and you're like, but... And you're just like, but Natsume. And then when he does break down and cry, it's just like somebody does open heart surgery on you and rips it out, Temple of Doom style, and says, is this your soul? And you're like, well... This episode, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest because that's my goal with y'all, is to be an honest reactor and tell you my honest opinion. There were a few points of this episode I wish they'd cut out, and there were a few points of episode I wish they'd expanded upon. And now, granted, I wonder if that has to do with the manga and what the manga gave us. It did feel, in essence, as if they were stretching this episode out because they didn't quite have enough content to fill the 20 or so minutes. So they stretched out just ever so slightly. And because a couple of the scenes were repeated, of course, they were the most heartbreaking scenes, because why wouldn't they be? But there were a couple moments that I was like the whole Miyoko thing. We'll talk about the whole Miyoko thing. I was like, that's what we're getting? I've been formulating the past 2 weeks on this theory of Miyoko getting involved, but that's what happens when you theorize. You don't know what's going to happen. So I am going to miss this OP though. This OP was lovely. It was so much fun, and it tied back to Natsume being a kid, which was all thematic throughout the season, and tied back to him going home with Toko and Shigure, and then with Madara there. It was also thematic. I loved it. This damn bug spirit, this yokai, is the scariest yokai, one of the scariest yokai we've had so far, because it's been the most threatening. And I think it's the most threatening because it wanted to eat Natsume's memories. And part of what makes Natsume who he is, as he tells the spirit later on in the episode, is his memories. It's the good. It's the bad. You aren't yourself without all of it. And so I feel like that in itself is such a lesson to people who have experienced trauma. You can't forget that part of yourself that has been traumatized, because the moment that you do, you're not yourself anymore, because you are the sum of your experiences. You are the sum of your experiences with the people around you. You are the sum of the experiences of your family, your friends, acquaintances, strangers, but you're also the sum of the experiences of what you yourself have told yourself. Like how we process those experiences is part of who we are. And to erase those memories is to erase that part of our being. And even if it's something traumatizing or sad or horrific, that influences the decisions that we make and why we are the way that we are. And so I'm glad. I was really nervous. Anytime that memory is affected in narratives, it kind of scares me, because it will affect that character. And so I was really nervous because I didn't want Natsume to forget part of who he was. And so I'm glad he was able to resist that yokai, but it was terrifying. Also good to note that Madara, Mr. I don't care about anything except for the book of friends when you die, that Mr. Madara was like, well, I can't just try to get rid of this yokai because it could destroy your mind. Sure, Jan. Sure, you don't care. I really believe that, Madara, except I don't. So yeah, why in this series are these kids the biggest bastards in the world? Why are they the worst? You know what? If Natsume was a little shit when he was a kid, I'd be like, okay, I get it. If he was, because he is kind of a little bit of a grump when Yuriko meets him in episode 5. He is a little bit doom and gloom, but you know why? Because you see this background happening and how it's developed him, so you can see why he got to that point. But then Yuriko, it puts Yuriko and Miyoko are such opposites. And I loved Yuriko so much in episode 5 because she didn't understand Natsume. She didn't get it, but she also was a kind person. And so she recognized the prejudice and the bullshit and was like, I don't like this happening to this kid. He doesn't deserve that. And so she worked to make sure that he was treated better than he had been before. And Natsume seeing someone stand up for him and seeing someone give a damn for him and care about him, that one act of positivity, that one act of kindness completely opened the doors for him and helped to shape him into who he is now. And that cannot be understated. So episode 5, I hope that's not anime only. I hope that's in the manga, because it cannot be understated how impactful that is, I feel, in shaping his character. And of course, the creator of Natsume is working on the series with the anime team. So even if it was anime only, they've incorporated their vision into it. So we'll see. We'll see when we get to the manga. I'm going to look at the manga over the next few weeks as we get into the OVAs and as we get into season 5. So we'll tie back to that. We'll touch base on that. Don't you worry. But yeah. And so then you have, now to be fair, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit to Miyoko in this episode, because we do get a little bit more context in her character and why she makes the decisions that she does. She's still heinous in this episode. There were parts I was like, girl, But I do understand part of where she's coming from. And I'm sure some people will connect with her and relate to her and defend her. Y'all have my blessings. I'm not mad at her, but there are moments where I'm like, damn, you were a brat as a kid. And it seems like she's changed, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But in Miyoko's defense, Yuriko did not have to live with Natsume and sleep in the same room as him. So there is a little bit there that is different. So it's not completely comparing apples. It's like apples and oranges, essentially. But the sad part is that I feel so bad for Natsume, not because I don't think it's realistic that there are these little bastard children. I've substitute taught many times. I substitute taught for years in elementary school. I know these little shits exist because I've had to teach them before. So I know that they're out there. I think what's so frustrating as you watch Natsume's backstory is we are getting this from Natsume's perspective. So the saddest part of all, and when I call out all these brats for being the worst, is not because I think it's unrealistic. No, there are a bunch of bratty kids that would act this way to Natsume and would ostracize him and would be prejudiced against him and would make him feel unwanted because they do that anyway. But I think the part that's so frustrating is because we're getting this from Natsume's perspective, he doesn't see the good people out there. He doesn't see the Tanamas in his class. He doesn't see the Nishimuras or the Kishimotos or the Sasadas that are non-existent anyway, or the Takis or whatever. He doesn't see that. He only sees the negative. And you can call that a flaw of Natsume, but when we go back into his backstory, every flashback we get of him as a kid, we primarily see just the negative, the people around him that are awful. And I feel like that is the show in the mangaka's way of also illustrating how, for us as humans, the worst of people is often what we remember most. It's not the most influential, because as we've seen from Yuriko and Toko and Shigure and the others, it's not the most influential, and it's not the most life-changing, because those beacons of hope are what do set people's courses right, and what do give them hope and survival, motivation and things like that. But what we often remember first off is the negative. And so I feel like it is very pointed and strategic for the mangaka to only show us these negative kids around Natsume, because Natsume's entire past is filled with such grief and pain. And that's what he remembers. He may not necessarily remember that there were kind kids in his class. He just remembers the kids that were awful to him. Also, this one yokai on the stoop that looks like Dobby that's sitting there saying, "I've been here a long time." That's creepy as sin. What the fudge, mangaka? And that yokai was just there for a hot second being like, "I've been here for a long time." Terrifying. No wonder this kid is just freaked out. Poor Natsume. And then, of course, he's like, can no one else see all these scary things? And that's when he finds the temple, the shrine. And again, the idea of Natsume always going to these shrines and finding sanctuary there but it's in this isolated environment where he can't be picked on, but he's still alone. And I'm sorry, but the animation in this episode, tiny little Natsume with his itty bitty little hands that I want to just like collect and gather and run off and take him away. Oh, I'm like, show, why do you do this? You very intentional. They know exactly what they're doing. They'll make it their secret base where no one will come. Again, I feel like that Natsume has come so far, and this episode was such a great way to bookend how Natsume has come from being a little kid that just wanted to be alone, like Reiko, to being a young man who has found his tribe, found his people, found people that care about him, and how he doesn't want to be alone. He not only wants to be with humans, but he also wants to be with yokai as well. Just the growth. The meme where they're like, you know what that's called? Growth. That is exactly what this whole season was, and I was living for it. So we get to see a few various scenes where we get to see the other side of things, where Miyoko just does not want to accept Natsume's presence because she's jealous of him, because she views that he's taking away from her family. The worst part is like, at some point, If I were her parents, I would have sat her down and been like, hey, Miyoko, look, we know this is awkward and having a new kid coming into your life is scary, and that it's not fair that your life is you're having to share a room with him. That's not fair. We understand. But I'd been like, hey, Miyoko, his parents have died and he's all alone. You know, maybe we should be nice to him and try to, like, you know, the fact that they just let her go and they don't try to have those conversations that we, the audience, can see with her and explain the complexity of it, and maybe be like, hey, Miyoko, why don't you ask Natsume how he feels? And why don't you ask him, you know, if you can, you know, why don't we incorporate him and do family things together and do that? Like, I would have been like, girl, you're going to get involved with this, whether you like it or not. And we're going to talk about it. And I feel like they just kind of like let her go and it just festers, you know? And I can't tell them how to parent, but it just felt like I don't think the parents did enough in the situation to remedy, or they just ignored her and that wasn't enough. And it might be a cultural thing, but they don't make it right. So it just frustrated me so much because Takashi's like, Takashi didn't ask to be there. He was placed there because he's a 5-year-old and it's a foster system. He didn't ask to be there. He needed a place to stay. His parents are dead. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know where he lives. He doesn't have anybody that's friends close to him. So it's like, and then for it all to come back to him and everybody being like, and the part that got me was Dad's like, well, I got to go apologize now. I'm like, but why? The people, when they brought him back, they said it was okay. I know you think it's a formality, but like saying that in front of Natsume makes him instantly feel guilty. And again, as the parents, if he went off by the shrine by himself and you're like, well, why did you do that? You should be having those conversations of, why did this kid run away to the shrine by himself? Why is nobody playing with him? What's going on? And maybe they had those conversations and we just didn't see it off screen, but oh, it was hard to watch. It really was. And seeing Natsume in front of the udon shop, all he wants is to have friends and just be a normal kid. And he's got all this stuff against him. And Miyoko tries to make it all about her, which they're kids. Of course they're going to make it all about themselves. But it was very frustrating. It was very frustrating to watch. And honestly, I feel like I want to see the manga version of this, and we'll talk about it in the next couple of weeks with the manga. But I want to see how the manga portrays this particular story, because if it isn't anime only, which that would blow my mind, but I felt like they could have shortened some of the scenes where they showed us, where they recontextualized and re-showed us the scenes from last episode, but just seeing it full on. They could have shortened those scenes. And I wanted more with Natsume and her at the end. We see him giving the key back to her and that she's smiling, talking to him. We don't get any of that damn conversation. I was like, are you kidding me? We went through all of that. I had in my head the last 2 weeks, I had in my head that she was going to run down and catch up with him. And she was going to like somehow get the yokai to come out of him, or somehow be integral to it happening. And then she was going to go find the house with him, and they were going to like go up the hill and talk about it and run through things, and her being like, well, this is why I was back when I was a kid. And he'd be like, oh, that's fine, but here's like this whole thing of why I'm coming to this house. Like, I wanted them to communicate, and that's the communications major in me and the communications teacher in me, but I wanted them to communicate and be able to reconcile their differences. And the show gave us a reconciliation, but it wasn't really a reconciliation. It was just showing rather than telling. And sometimes you need to be told. Sometimes you need to hear that being expanded upon. So the only thing I can think of is maybe down the road, not in these OVAs, I'm sure, but maybe down the road in season 5, we will tie back to that. Maybe the manga expands on it. Maybe it never happened at all, and this was all made up just by the anime. Who knows? Like I said, I'm going to be going through. We have 2 OVAs coming up back to back. With each OVA, I'll be looking at a volume of the manga that is tied to this season. And so hopefully that will give us some answers. And then if there are more than 2 volumes covering season 4, then I will talk about it starting season 5. So we'll have that to look forward to. But man, this whole Tachibana character though, right? They casually mention Tachibana, but then they're not mentioned, and like they're a broker and they have the address, but then they're never there. They were very mysterious. Mysterious to the point where I wonder if they're going to show up in a future season, because it felt weird to me for Tachibana to be mentioned and then for them to be on the phone and for Natsume to never meet them. So it was weird for me. In the words of Jessica Wilde, that was weird for me. So I don't know if we're ever going to meet them, but damn. And also the creepy tiny monster. I love that it was a tiny monster when he was a kid, and then it just grew and grew more and more in the house, being more resentful. And Natsume could scare it away at first, but then it got bigger to the point where it kind of took control of the house, which now that it's gone, I wonder if that's going to affect the mood of the house at all. Now, again, to be fair to Miyoko, I thought there were 2 moments in this episode where, to be fair to her, I could see why she wouldn't want Natsume there. First was the fact that she had to share a room with him because the kids made fun of her at school, being like, oh, you got to share a room with a boy and all this. And I could see as a grade school kid how that would be not exactly inducive to not being bullied. So I could see that. And I could see from her point of Natsume just shouting at the wall how that would be kind of creepy. But again, she, instead of talking it out with Natsume and asking like, why are you talking about that? I just kept imagining in this scene, if it had been Taki or even Sasada, who would have been like, why are you talking to that ghost? What you doing, Natsume? Let's see what's going on. Like, you know, if it had been any other character that we'd met so far, they would have handled it differently than Miyoko. And I get the show's giving us how different characters react to different scenarios, but she did not act correctly, in my opinion, as a kid, but they are kids, so we can cut him some slack. I'm sorry, when he's back in the shrine holding the little address with his tiny little take my strong hand hands from Scary Movie 2, I can't take that. I can't. It's over. Just done. Call it a day. He's too cute. He's too precious. How dare you hurt him? This thunder, though, was the most violent thunder in anime history. It was shaking the ground, which also I appreciate from a kid's perspective. The thunder seems a lot scarier than it is. So you kind of get it. You're like, I get what they're doing with it. But man, and then him, I don't blame Natsume. I was glad Natsume didn't go back in the rain and try to go home, because I was just imagining him like falling down in the mud or getting lost or getting like struck by lightning. By the Sharknado of lightning that's in this episode. So instead they find him. And I mean, I get why. I'm glad that Miyoko's parents weren't mad that he went missing and they didn't get on to him. Instead, they kind of took the blame for it. But in the same vein, it's like them not talking it out. It's like not asking Natsume, why were you at the shrine? Why did you walk away? Why were you by yourself? Like, and that just kind of exacerbated Miyoko's guilt, making her feel like it was partially her fault. And then she projects on Natsume by literally hitting him. Like, what? They just making me feel so bad for Natsume. And then he tries to leave. And when he's sitting there like running and stumbling and out of breath and just like making himself move, looking like a Run with the Wind character as he's like getting a fever, and calling out his dad's name. And we said, I learned that each time nothing called back. That was the first part that got me. And I was like, don't you dare cry, bitch. You're not going to cry in this episode, Natsume. Nope. This series has taken too many of your tears, too many of your precious salt-laden tears. You're not going to have it happen. You're not going to cry in this episode. But him calling out his dad's name and realizing that no one was calling him back, and just that furthering Natsume's feeling that he is alone and that no one's going to help him. Are you kidding me, show? Are you kidding me? And then he's like, no matter how many times you scream for it, sometimes it's out of your reach and you can't have it. Like, just that negative mindset. It's just like, no, Natsume, I don't believe that. But you can see how that has traveled with him up through these seasons. And then him falling down. I love that the road gets more winding. And he's like, I decided to stop calling out for someone who would never call back. But then that reinforces his entire mentality moving forward until we get to like season 3 and season 4, that he doesn't need to befriend anybody because chances are at some point they're not going to be there for him. And so he won't be able to call for them for help. And then Matoba threatening his family, that would make that situation a thing. No wonder Natsume got pissed about it. So something I really love about this series is that everything comes back. Every reason that Natsume thinks a certain way or believes a certain thing, even if in the moment it doesn't quite make sense, you're going to find out later on why he acted that way. And it's like, y'all, I cannot express to you how good this episode was, how good this season was. And I love the green of Natsume's jacket against the green of the monster. And when the monster's like, I want your memories, the sad memories you want to forget, I'll eat them for you. And he's like, you just have to draw a mouth. And I love that he's just begging Natsume. He's huge at this point. Let me eat all these memories from you. And Natsume says, no, they're part of what makes me who I am. I love that. No matter how much they hurt me, they're important to me. And I was like, yes, thank you. I was like, I'm glad you realized this. Why these yokai decide to choke him every time, I don't know. And then they try to make him, he's like, your memories and your heart. At that point, when he says heart, it was like, oh, we've gone too far. And then Madara and Toko, he can hear their voice. And then he's like, no, I'm going home. I'm going to get back here. He's like, that's right. I'm going home. I love that. It felt so good to see him break away from that damn monster. It felt very Spirited Away, honestly. When the monster like leaves his body, that part was freaking creepy. No, thank you. I could do without seeing this blob come out of his stomach. Thank you very much. But it felt very Spirited Away in that moment, like no face getting out of you. I even love Madara's face where he's like, well, this is awkward. And yeah, puberty is a weird thing. And he's like, oh, you did it, Natsume. Now I'm going to get rid of this bitch. I love it. I love him grabbing it and just smashing it into all these little butterflies. I love it. They're like these little black moths. And then I love when Madara's like, he's like, oh, they're gross. No. I loved that. He's like, and then him saying, well, he's like, I've destroyed his spiritual energy, so he's not going to be bothering him. He's just a harmless little bug now. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Natsume's like, thank you, Sensei. And he's like, did you call me? And he's like, oh, well, he says he didn't see his memories. I like that his eyes kind of twinkle for a second, saying, I'm not interested in your memories. But I'm like, did you see them, Madara? Did you? Your eyes are glossy. Mm-hmm. And Natsume's like, okay, sure, Jan, whatever. I'm only staying with you until I get the Book of Friends. Which is, at the end of all things. Natsume scratching his little chin, though. Madara, you are whipped, and you will not admit it. So they go after and find the house, which is at the top. It's on a damn mountainside. This is prime real estate, is it not? Is it not prime real estate? You couldn't fix this house up on a hill? Like, there are no neighbors. You are secluded. You got a mountainside view. You could make this real estate sing, Tachibana. Why ain't you doing this? You think it's haunted? Probably. I mean, I think they're missing a golden opportunity. What I also really love is that the house itself, it looks in ill repair. But if you've ever been to an abandoned house that's been that way for a long time, for like even 15 years, it doesn't look like what you would think it looked like with like the overgrowth and everything. It just looks like it's not been taken care of. It really does not always look like super dramatic in how disheveled it is. I also love that it's just this modest little house. It's just this modest little home. There's the back porch. And then there's the room. I will say, the moment that he opens up the back door where the garden is, and he looks back into the room, and it kind of like zooms around in this really like kind of wonky and sideways manner where it almost looks dizzying. And Madara's like just looking around like, what the hell are you looking down at me for? The way that Madara was drawn and the way that Natsume was drawn in that moment, it reminded me of the Digimon movie from like 2000. I can't tell you why, but it did. And then him just like walking through the house. There's such a nostalgia to it. It was so insane how nostalgic this was, that if you've ever walked into a house that's been abandoned or an old house for like the first time in a long time, it just has that feeling. Like you could almost smell the mustiness through the screen. It was just, and then him going into the kitchen and there being the crayon drawings by the sink that Natsume had done, which if you think about it, if his mother had died and the dad was taking care of everything by himself, he probably just let the drawing go because he was like, it's not that big of a deal, you know? But also Natsume drawing like the train and the flower and the house and what looks like a cat. What looks like a cat. Interesting. I mean, Madara's been trapped inside the little shrine, right? Right? Maybe. My dad kept it even though I drew it in a place like this. I was doing fine. I was doing fine until Madara opened up that damn closet door and saw the picture of Natsume with his family and the flower. And that's when it was over. Because the idea that Natsume has always put pictures of the people he cares about in the closet, like he keeps, like he buries that emotion in his heart and he keeps that inside. I just was done at that point. And the fact that Madara saw it and said nothing about it. No, I just, And then them sitting out on the porch, and there is still the wind chime. The wind chime's still there. I would take that wind chime with me, to be honest. I know that you shouldn't steal from the property, but if that was my dad's wind chime and it was still up there, I'd be like, they're going to tear this house down. Just take the wind chime. I would have taken that wind chime. I would have taken the wind chime with me. That was my dad's wind chime. I would have taken it. And he's sitting there like, do you remember anything about your life here? And he's like, I forgot most of it. Which he was a little kid, so you can understand that. He's like, so many important things I've forgotten. Which I hate that Natsume looks at it in such a sad way. I hate that he still looks at it with such like negativity. I'm like, no. But yeah, that house, like it's on a mountainside. I mean, granted, if there's like a flood and erosion, it's not in a great place. Or if there's an earthquake, it's not in a great place. But what are the odds of that happening? I mean, otherwise. And then he's like, Sensei, somewhere in this yard. I love that he's like, my mom planted some flowers that my dad said. I love that Madara has his one eye open when he says that. I wonder where they are. It's too late to tell. Like, he can't remember where the flowers were once planted. And then, like, there's that image of him with Natsume as a little kid. And there's all, like, the herbs and everything. I hope they bloom this year. The fact that the dad wants the flowers of his dead wife to bloom in the garden. I hope they bloom every year. Oh. And then there's him, like, patting Natsume's head. Oh, little baby Natsume. I can't. And then Natsume breaking down and crying. Nope. That point there where Madara just is quietly sitting there letting him cry it out. And the sad part is none of his friends know about what he's done there or gone there. And then he shuts the gate and leaves it behind, stares back at the house. And that one shot, they did not focus on it long, but damn, Natsume looked great in that shot. Where he looked there, like looked at the house, giving it one last look over, like, this is it. They're probably going to tear it down. It's fine. And he says goodbye to his dad. And then as he turns to walk away, there is a moment, yeah, that one shot of him, it looks so good. Like, it's just, he's letting the memory of his dad, like, go to get closure there. Ugh. And he says goodbye to his home. And then he says, now let's go home. I felt like it was so important of him going back to this house so he could have that closure, so he could like wrap up that one chapter of his life before meeting Toko and Shigure, and being able to move on to the next life. And then when he sees her, and then she smiles and talks to him, and I'm like, you're not going to give us what that conversation was about? Show, how dare you? How dare you? And he's like, we didn't get to eat udon, but Madara did not get mad at me for once. Yeah, I think Sensei knows, right? He's been through enough. And then him getting back home and them saying welcome home to him, and it just opening up the door and his family being there. Y'all, season 4 was so, and you can see where he's been crying. I'm like, how dare you, show? Just him saying he's home. I do love the camera we'll talk about the camera product placement. I'm glad we got back to the family photo because I thought they were going to skip it. But for the third time, our motley crew decide to go find the soda water fountain. I love that Natsume, I love that we have the contrast of when he was a kid and the kids made fun of him for running away from the yokai. Because the one yokai up on the stoop wasn't doing anything to harm him. He was just talking, and Natsume got scared and ran away, and the other kids thought he was weird. I love the contrast where this time Natsume sees the yokai. He doesn't run away in fear. Instead, he pays attention to them, sees that they're going towards the soda water, and he's like, oh, we'll follow him. There we go. Because they're like, Natsume-sama. And he uses it to help him bond with his friends. And I love that. Then Shunitori, God, the unloved album that Sasada gives back to Taki. Oh my God. Also Taki's outfit, what a legend. What a fashion inspiration. I will never go over the fact of unloved with Shunitori. Cannot get over it. But yeah, of course, Taki is like, oh, Nishimura's like, oh, you're here, Taki, eh? And so, like, I love that Sasada, who's not technically in this scene, in the manga, I'm sure, was like, we looked it up ahead of time. Like, you boys don't know how to use MapQuest? It's 2007. We know it exists. I know somebody in the comments will be like, actually, MapQuest didn't exist back then. I know it did. But, and then the soda water spring is this little well where, granted, it is indeed bubbling like it's carbonated, but that rust-colored soda water, there is no way in hell I would drink that. Nope. Do you know how you tell me that's sanitary? How you tell me that's sanitary? Nope. Also, I know in the Discord we've been doing tiny pictures of Madara. The one where he's flailing as Taki is hugging him is absolutely hysterical. Love it. But yeah, then we see all the yokai watching over them because it's the end of the season. I'm sure that's not in the manga, but we just have to see them at the end there. And then, man, Nishimura is going to have a sick stomach the next day from drinking all of that. Then we have Shigure with his Pontax camera and silk camera stand. You know, all the product placement, but I'm fine with that. As they get together for the photo. Shigure is a DILF. Let's just establish. But they get together. I love that Natsume is getting older and he's starting to get taller too, which is super cute. I love him with his family. It's so adorable. And then, man, that camera looks great. They do a lot of... I like subtle product placement, and that toes the line just nicely. And then Madara comes and they get the one picture with them, which is so cute. And they're like, oh, of course. How could we forget? And then he has the book of him. I love that we had the butterfly book with his parents' photo on it. And now we have Natsume's Book of Friends with the photo of him and Madara on it. Because Madara is part of their family. I love this season. I love this series. But this season was so good. This season was a lot of fun. It went by so fast. We only had 8 weeks with season 4, which feels like a long time, but it's gone by the fastest. So I I am super excited. So I've already looked ahead. I am going to be getting from the moderators how many volumes of the manga encompass season 4 without getting into season 5 content. So we'll do that, kind of like what we did last season. And so I'll be looking at each volume of those moving forward as we finish these next 2 OVAs and start season 5. There are 2 OVAs. One is on Crunchyroll. I went ahead and looked. It's probably what we're going to watch. I don't know. I can't decide if I want to watch that one next week or the other one. We'll watch one of the 2 OVAs next week. One of them is on Crunchyroll, so it's easy to find. The other one is not, but I've already put out feelers on Patreon to find it, so don't you worry. I will find it to watch. I'm very confident. Everybody on Patreon's super nice and super helpful, so shouldn't have a problem there. But with that being said, I'm excited to take a little break because this season was a lot in a good way. But it'll be nice to take a couple weeks, look at some OVAs, some fun little one-shots, talk about the manga. That'll be exciting. And then we'll start March, like officially a year into Natsume's Book of Friends, with season 5. So the next few weeks are gonna be fun. I hope y'all are excited. But in the meantime, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Natsume's Book of Friends. Bye!